Thank you for coming. My name is Trent Lucier, and it's good to be back in San Francisco again. I've been here a couple times in the last year. It's always a good time. I work for Samsung Electronics in Suwon, South Korea, a place called Digital City. This is their headquarters, mobile, TV, printers, all sorts of stuff going on there. So came in on Sunday, still a jet lagged, but I think I'm gradually getting over it. And so thank you for coming. Today I'm going to be going over two different sessions. You're in my first session here. This is a Tizen TV SDK overview. So I'm going to be giving kind of a brief overview of the tools we're offering in our package that's available to download now. And I'm going to go over what is a Tizen app, what are some of the things that are for developer best practices, and also, of course, an overview of all the tools. In the next session, I'll be going into things a little bit deeper, and I'll also be accompanied by one of my colleagues who will go over into some things. But I'll be also giving a crash course in the next session, briefly covering the things I talked about here, one of our UI frameworks called CAF, and also talking about native app development, and also some utility tools we've been developing. So I'll say right now there's probably about 30% overlap between these two presentations, so maybe not both of them are entirely necessary to go to if you've been to this one, but there's a little bit of overlap, but the second one is more for detailed issues for development. So first, let's talk about a little bit of the history of our Smart TV and our upcoming Tizen TV. We first started developing the Smart TV SDK about 4 years ago, and this was a web-based platform. We support a couple different things, Flash, the Pinnacle native client. And you can see that now, next year, we're moving towards the Tizen platform. And I think as you've heard here many times before, one of the benefits is that we're hoping to have less fragmentation, better performance, and really get more support for cross-platform developments. Okay? So the Tizen TV is going to be released next year, but the SDK I'm talking about today is already released. We've had the beta since the summer, and we're going to we just released a new version a couple weeks ago, and of course it'll continually be updated as time goes on. So these are the three questions I want to have drive this presentation here today. What is the Tizen TV app? What tools are in the TV SDK? And also, what are some best practices for TV app development? I know in these conferences, a lot of people are usually mobile or browser developers, and the TV is kind of a different usability situation. And we've seen some issues people can have, so I was going to go over some of the considerations you might want to take if you're planning a TV application in the future. So first of all, what is a Tizen TV app? Well, what we really hope with TV apps is to take advantage of the power of a digital TV and also combine it with the power of the internet. So of course, on the TV, in my opinion, one of the killer apps is the big screen that you have that your whole family can see. It's kind of a community experience. Combined with video, audio, obviously channel is a big thing. Remote control, very different user interface than what people are used to on a computer or a mobile device. Also device discovery, connecting with other devices in your home ecosystem. Combine that with the power of the internet that we've seen over the last 20 plus years. Web services, video, social networking. When you combine these two things together, what you get is a Tizen app, or a TV app. And of course, now we're talking about Tizen apps. So the good news is that if you know HTML, if you know JavaScript, CSS, you probably already know about 95% or to more of what you need to know to get started with Tizen TV app development. On the right, I've included kind of the basic technical structure here. On the left, you can see the outline of an example app. So if you've ever developed a web app, this probably looks pretty familiar to you with your HTML, some type of config file, JavaScript. It's very easy in a lot of cases to take well-defined web apps and port them to Tizen. I've done it a couple times myself as experiments. I've gone with some game libraries that I've seen online, some HTML5 stuff. And usually when they're well-behaved and they're nicely organized, it's fairly straightforward to get them running in our Tizen environment. So why do people make TV apps? Well, so far it seems like one of the killer apps is video. This is one of the most common things app developers are trying to do. Games are another huge one. Just take a stroll outside. You can see that Samsung is pretty serious about getting game development on all our platforms. And music, fitness, and smart home are really big upcoming ones, I think. And kind of a personal one that I'm becoming more interested in these days is education. I think the idea of using the TV apps to get the classroom in the living room is a pretty exciting possibility, especially when we look at MOOCs and all these open classroom things. Definitely, I think there's a lot of potential there. So I'm looking forward to that space. Now, going forward. So what tools are available for developers today? If you visited my booth in the section over there, you may have heard me talk about some of these things already, so I'm going to go over them again here. If you look at the Tizen ecosystem, you've probably noticed maybe you've used some of the SDKs already for mobile or wearable. Of course, today we're in the TV SDK, and kind of there's a common pattern across all these tools. We try to provide an IDE. There's a physical device, like real hardware, and oftentimes there's some type of simulator that goes along with it. And one of the reasons for the simulator is developers, they don't have access to the hardware. And this is especially true with a TV. The TV device is, just by its very nature, by its very form factor, it's a little more inconvenient for developers to get. So we try to focus very much on the simulator aspect here. So this is an overview of our web app SDK. And this is the SDK, also I sometimes call it the public SDK. This is what's available to everyone. You can go on our website, samsungdforum.com, and download all these tools right now. So this is based on HTML5. We're really trying to focus on these standards these days, especially because we know developers are developing across multiple platforms, and it makes their lives much easier, is the feedback we've got. As developers, the feedback I hear myself. HTML5 APIs, code editor, simulator, device APIs, and it's open to everyone, all right? So the code editor, based on Eclipse, we have of course, JavaScript, HTML editing. Templates are a pretty powerful tool since you can kind of create hello world applications to get started with the platform. And packaging is another one. The packaging isn't too complicated, but it has a nice tool to get you started. Some developers have asked me, do I have to use this tool? Do I have to use that tool? And the answer is not really. If you have a favorite JavaScript development tool, if you have a favorite web development tool, you're free to use that as well. But one of the things, we provide some convenience functions in here that might make life a little bit easier. But it's not written in stone that you have to use it. The main thing that I think is convenient for the developers is the TV simulator. As you know, the TV is coming out next year. It's not available now. So we've tried to focus on how can we let developers in their desktop environment run the apps? How can we let them test the apps in their desktop environment since it's so hard to get the hardware? So we released a lightweight simulator tool. It's about as lightweight as a web browser. It's based on WebKit. You can run the web apps. You can debug code using the Web Inspector tool. And you can also use the remote control keyboard and mouse simulator. Okay? So I'll just give you a little bit of a demo here. We support a bunch of different, can I switch to my laptop here, please? So we support several different things. We support WebGL, okay, so 3D acceleration, which is quite nice. So this is just a demo here. There's a JavaScript library called 3JS. It's just a WebGL library. Porting this to Tizen took about 5 minutes or so. So you can see this is a 3D-based application here. Another one we have, maybe this looks familiar to some people. This isn't exactly Minecraft, but you can see this is a kind of a lightweight demo here. So these are things that might, in a full stack emulator, might be kind of slow or not that great. But here we really try to get the performance, get the tools here so developers can quickly write code and change it. And a couple other examples too. This was written by our Samsung Mexico team. Can you mute it? Let me mute it. The music isn't that great. Yeah. So this is kind of a match 3 game. This was made in a hackathon just to kind of promote some HTML5 development. But you can see, you can imagine writing this in your editor and rapidly making changes and quickly testing the changes in the web simulator. So that's just a couple examples of how you might use the simulator tool to quickly test your apps in a web browser, okay? Can we go back to PowerPoint? So just to give some credit, so the 3JS examples, those are taken from a website about the 3JS website. And I didn't show you the Clumsy Bird one, but there's a GitHub app that I also ported there. So debugging, we also support debugging functions. Of course, very popular, very useful. We support HTML view, network profiling, JavaScript console. Basically anything you get with the web inspector, debugger, we support here, all right? So what is the Tizen Web API? Well, the good news is that a lot of it, again, is based on standards. The two main things we talk about are the Tizen Web API and the CAF UI. And there's the multi-screen SDK also. I didn't put the little Tizen icon next to it just because it's not that specific to Tizen, but you know, the multi-screen guys outside, they have a lot of good information about this. It is supported in our SDK. And you know, the foundation is really just the basic web standards. And a question we've gotten repeatedly today is, how do I make sure my apps are future-proofed? How do I make sure that that I know they're going to work? And the answer I keep giving over and over again is stick to web standards, try to use as much as possible. When you're using proprietary things, abstract it away, you know, try to hide it, because you know, eventually you may need to run it on some other platform, but standards are really the name of the game here, okay? So what are the proprietary things that may take special effort? Well, you know, we have an audio-video API, but you can also use HTML5. Some of the timing functions are specific for our platform, sound control, and I'd say remote control is probably the big one here. And that's all handled through JavaScript. A question I got a couple times today, people see the remote control in the web simulator and say, how do I handle remote control events? In my web app, I'm used to people using a swipe, or I'm used to them using keyboard and mouse. How do I handle remote control? And the answer is that it's really just a JavaScript callback. So the remote control events are just handled through JavaScript. We also support HTML5, which I said many times, but just to reiterate that, when you support that standard, you get a lot of just free functionality. Melon.js and Phaser, they're two really nice HTML5 game frameworks I've seen. We're able to very easily port these apps to the Tizen platform. This Melon.js one, I mean, it took me about, I don't know, 30 minutes to get that. Probably could have spent more time on it, but really, the main thing is just getting it to fit the screen. Once you do that, all the controls, everything else automatically just works because it was standards, okay? Phaser is another one. One of our teams has had a lot of luck with that. And we've posted these apps on GitHub too. So they're good examples of how you can get things up and running. So whatever JavaScript library you're using or HTML5, as long as it's standards-based, you're probably pretty good to move it to Tizen. So another thing I want to talk about is the UI framework, CAF. So this is our high-performance UI framework, all right? And once again, rather than talk about it, I'll show you a demo. So can we go back to my machine here? So one of the problems was that historically, JavaScript has been slow in a browser, but this is using the CAF framework here. So this is all CSS and JavaScript, all right? And I think the performance is much nicer than we've seen in the past with some other platforms there. Let me try another one. Let's try this one. Oop, I changed the directory. Well, I'll just go that one again. But yeah, so that's the CAF demo that we show here. And so one of the good things is that actually this isn't specific to Samsung. So if you're worried, okay, I'm going to write this, is it going to work anywhere else? Well, actually, you can go, and because the way this is designed, it's our JavaScript library, you can actually go and run it in any WebKit browser here. So even in Chrome, you can see it working. So I've talked about web standards here this whole day, and you know, I'm showing you we made this library here that is sticking to web standards. It's accelerated CSS that can run in the Chrome web browser too. So this isn't something that we made just to tie people into the Tizen platform here. It's also running in other platforms. So can you switch back to my demo, please, or PPT? So the next session, we'll give a little more details about that. But that CAF framework you just saw, that UI framework, it is available on our Samsung D-Forum website. And the main trick there, why we're able to get such good performance is using the CSS, using certain 3D transformations, it triggers the GPU accelerator to assist the web app. CSS animations and transforms. When you use those things, the GPU kicks in and lets improve the performance. And one of the things we've done with Tizen is we've tried to kind of tune those APIs a little bit for Tizen. So they work anywhere, but we've exposed the APIs in such a way that they work better for Tizen. And they're going to have some upcoming features later. They'll have a Tizen theme later, I think. Right now, it's just basically the animation libraries, but they're going to have some more coming up. So I want to talk a little bit about what are some best practices for TV app development. And what is the typical development process? Now, I think I've done some mobile app development in the past. Usually, I have a mobile phone, so it's quite simple to just use my phone and test my Android app or get one of my friends to test it. But again, with the TV, it's much more difficult. So what we recommend is kind of starting your initial cycles between an IDE, whichever one you want, and probably the simulator, okay? So kind of doing this iteration, design your GUI, figure out your logic and flow, interaction, and those types of things. And these are very fast cycles. I mean, you make a change in the IDE, you refresh the web simulator, and 1 second later, your change is there, as opposed to an emulator where maybe you have to push some big package out to it, and it takes a long time. And it doesn't run very well. So that was our goal with the web simulator. But then after that, your final stage should always be, are you actually testing on a real device? There are lots of things that you can't test on the web simulator just because it's, you're running on your PC. So things like system performance and the large UI. So we say the TV has a 10-foot interface. And there's a session earlier about usability. Maybe he talked about this a little bit, but there's a difference between using an app that's 18 inches away on your laptop screen and an app that's 10 feet away on your TV. So those are the kind of things you discover when you actually use it on a real TV and sit across the room and look at it and ask yourself, does it really look good? I know I've been in this situation where you write text here, you open a web browser, stand 10 feet away from your monitor. Can you read it? Probably not. So these are the kind of usability things you have to look for in a real device. So some differences between the simulator and real device. Well, might be less memory on the real TV. Remote control response time is something you want to check out to make sure it's different. And video, audio, and network behavior may vary. Network one can be particularly tricky. We deal with a lot of video-based apps, and there's this situation that often occurs where someone's app works perfectly in whatever country they're in, India, and they send it to me, and the video doesn't play, and I say the video doesn't work, and I find out, well, maybe it's some region issue or some type of proxy issue. Vice versa, an app that works fine for me sometimes doesn't work fine for someone else. So you might want to pay attention to these types of issues, especially network behavior. Screen size, I talked about that one already. We call it the 10-foot UI. You really want to make sure that what you're doing is up there and works for the living room environments, okay? And performance could be different too. I think in the last 10 years, there's really been a major move towards simplicity in applications. It's one of the major design philosophies these days when you look at all providers, and that's something we definitely encourage. There isn't really a major style guide we have yet, but the TV interface isn't familiar to a lot of people. Most people understand these days a web browser. Most people understand the metaphors that are in a mobile app, swiping and backing and all that kind of stuff. But these things still aren't really that well known in a TV environment. I don't have a control here, but if you ever looked at a remote control, how many jokes have we heard about how complicated a remote control is, right? There aren't really a lot of well-defined behaviors there. So in terms of clarity, what a lot of apps do is perhaps at the bottom of your app, you describe the buttons, functionality, what do they do. Give the user guidance and don't make them feel powerless or confused, because it can be quite easy to make things confusing. So something you want to focus on, definitely usability in the TV environments. It just goes again with consistency, feedback, give the user messages, let them know what's going on, and aesthetic. I think that goes back to simplicity, but again, the design, make sure it's up there. So we have some online resources, and recently we opened up a GitHub account. and well, we added some apps to our GitHub account. And we're trying to host a lot of demo apps there to get developers running up and quickly up and running. So I've hosted about 4 or 5 apps there so far. And we also have a blog that we have posted some news on. If you have some success story or some interesting app you've done, if you have something you want to share, you want us to fork it, or you want us to star it or something, let us know, because my whole purpose with these resources is to let people know what's possible. So if you have something you've done and you want to help us and help yourself get some more publicity, certainly contact me or contact someone on our team, and we can get some things up here and shown. Like I said, earlier I showed those demo apps, the Phaser app and the Melon.js app. Those are here, so you can see how those work. Right now they're available, so easy way to see what's going on. And we also have the developer.tizen.org website there, which this is kind of the general Tizen website. So roadmap, this is mostly history at this point, but so we released the beta SDK in June, and we just released our main SDK here November 1st. Okay, so the main takeaway here is that it's open for developers to use now, and you can see we're committed to it. We started 6 months ago, continue to be supported until next year. All right. So just to review what's available, it's all available at the Samsung D Forum website right now. The features, TV simulator, editor, and debugging. Of course, we have documentation, and just want to emphasize again our demo apps. The APIs, multi-screen. I haven't talked much about that today, but it's available there. And the debugger and JavaScript libraries. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time kind of giving a lecture today. I kind of wanted to leave some time open for Q&A at the end, and I think we definitely have some time for that. So kind of to end here, I know some of you are mobile developers, some are TV developers already. We have some members from HQ here. So I'd like to open it up here. Are there any questions and answers, or questions? Yes, in the back.
We have already have smart TVs.
Uh-huh.
We already have smart TVs in the channel.
Yes, yeah.
And we're now migrating to Tizen. So is there our current set of TVs that we've invested in, will they upgrade to Tizen?
So, sorry. So the question is, the TVs you ordered, will they upgrade to Tizen? Yeah, I don't think there's no automatic upgrade path there. I think my recommendation is if you're going to develop apps for Smart TV now, start planning for web standards and kind of, you can download our Tizen SDK now to check out where the APIs are going and what's available there. So you might want to, even though the Tizen TV isn't here yet, target your apps for Smart TV, but also double check them in the Tizen SDK to see.
What I'm really looking for is your path. We have smart apps and smart TVs already out there. We're going to migrate to Tizen.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Tizen backward compatible with our smart apps.
Yes, I see, okay.
Is our smart TVs upgradable to Tizen?
Yeah. So no, the Smart TV cannot be upgraded to a Tizen TV. In terms of apps, the migration path, I think there is some developer effort that will be needed there. Yes, yeah. So, yeah. Question there, yes? I think there's a question here on the right. Is there a, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here.
So it seems to me that the Tizen TV has a lot of similarities to other things in the marketplace, like not to mention competitors or whatever, but Firefox OS and WebOS from LG.
Right.
Same basic idea. Can you address a little bit the issue of interoperability, compatibility, or at least kind of hybrid development so that you can have the least amount of effort? I wouldn't expect the app stores to merge, but there should be some reasonable seamlessness in developing for this class of platform.
Right, and I've seen apps that work on Smart TV and also work on other platforms, and when I've analyzed them, what I usually find is kind of what I said earlier, is that the main app, 90% to 95% is kind of platform agnostic, HTML5, JavaScript. And then there's that folder where they have, the Smart TV folder for that specific JavaScript. They have another folder for some other platform-specific JavaScript. And then, your app, you can somehow dynamically test which one you are. There's also a concept I explain here about responsive web design, where you can determine what's my form factor, using style sheets to actually dynamically adapt your GUI. That's another option. But I think you like media queries and things like that. So as I said, my main recommendation would be kind of conform to standards and then have some type of abstracted layer where you can choose what other platforms you want to support. That's the way I've seen it done so far. Yes.
We've built a fair amount of smart TV apps, and one of the things we find a lot is that the processing power of the TV in the same model year varies greatly. Okay. How are you guys accounting for that in terms of both testing and for rollout?
Yeah, at the moment I don't know much about the hardware specifications for the TV coming next year. Does anyone have anything to add? No? Okay. Yeah, so nothing there, no announcements yet for the hardware specifications, unfortunately. So, yes, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Are there any TV-specific APIs to get access also to the current programming of the TV itself?
To the what?
To the TV programming, like which channels, which programs you're watching?
I see.
And kind of like sort of independent, are there any, probably more the native layers, access to potentially the audio or thumbnailing of what's currently displayed on the TVs?
Yeah, I didn't show it, but there is some audio APIs that developers can use and channel API. In terms of lower level things, there is something, I didn't put a slide on it, but there's a platform SDK that we have for close partners. So this is for lower level components, like native components, and something I'll talk about in the next session called Nako, the Google native client. So those things kind of, we don't put them on the internet, but if you're a close partner or you contact us and want to be a close partner, we can get you those more lower level SDK APIs and how to deal with some of those. So that's what we call the platform SDK. It's being used by developers to actually make the TV platform itself. And the one I talked about now, the easy public one that everyone can use just by downloading, is more the higher level web SDK. So yes, those things are supported too. If you're interested in becoming a closer partner and taking advantage of the lower level functions, either contact me, I'll put you in the right, connect you to the right person, or contact one of the other Samsung members here, and we'll try to see what we can do with the platform SDK. We've been doing this with content providers so far. Yes.
Yes, so his question might actually segue into mine.
Okay.
It's about the runtime for Tizen, which I think it's like V8 and Blink, perhaps, for the CSS. I think I've heard that somewhere. But anyway, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like in terms of keeping like in line with web standards on the JavaScript and CSS side of things, do you know how frequently like the update cycle is for the JS interpreter and CSS engine?
I don't know how frequently the update cycle is. I guess since the TV hasn't been released yet, I don't know when the first update cycle will happen. Certainly for like third-party libraries, if you're interested in jQuery or stuff like that, you can kind of upgrade those. You can just include wherever you want in your own app. But in terms of the underlying engine, whatever V8 or WebKit and that type of stuff, I'm not sure exactly when the first updates, how quickly they'll be rolled into the platform. Any other questions? Here? Yes, yeah.
Tizen 3.0.
Yes, yeah.
Where is that roadmap for TV?
Yeah. So can anyone speak to which exactly one we'll be releasing with the, any information or not announced yet? No? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, currently we are based on 2.2.1. Yes, we are trying to upgrade the Tizen 3.0, but currently we do not decide yet. But hopefully we will follow the Tizen version.
Okay. Any other questions? One more in the back, yes.
Will all the 2015 model TVs will be shipped with Tizen, or will Smart TV be continued?
Yeah, the current plan is for Tizen on the 2015 TVs, yes. So no, Smart TV, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. None others? So if you're interested, I'll be giving another session in the next hour. This will be giving a little more details on CAF. One of my colleagues will be talking about native client development. I'll also be going over a couple other technical details about things. And of course, I'll be at the booth all the rest, tomorrow and after my next session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call me or contact me. My email is trent.lucier@samsung.com. I'm sure it's in your paperwork there. I'll be here until my next session, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.